Good afternoon, everyone. This is John McKelwin from the Sun Belt Conference. Thank you for joining us. Earlier this afternoon, we sent out a press release at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern regarding a long-term multimedia rights deal that we have signed with ESPN. Today on our call, we have three individuals who will give opening statements. First, we'll have Dr. Mark Becker, who's the president of the Sun Belt Conference and Georgia State University. We'll also have Sun Belt Commissioner Karl Benson. And then from ESPN, Vice President of Programming and Acquisitions, Nick Dawson. If you need to ask a question at any time, please press *1. With that being said, I'd like to open up the line to Dr. Mark Becker.
Thank you, John. Well, I just want to open by saying on behalf of the presidents and chancellors of the Sun Belt institutions, we're delighted with Sun Belt's new agreement with ESPN. As everyone knows, ESPN is the premier sports media platform in this country, and we consider them a terrific partner. So this is an important day for the Sun Belt Conference, for our member institutions, and for our fans. So we're happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Becker. And now Sun Belt Commissioner Karl Benson.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for participating in today's call. This truly is a big day in the history of the Sun Belt Conference and a momentous step for the Sun Belt going forward. 6 years ago this month, I was privileged and honored to be hired by the 11 presidents and chancellors of the Sun Belt at that time, 5 of which would be making decisions in the coming months to leave the Sun Belt for, quote, greener pastures. And the 6 who remained in the Sun Belt, along with 6 others who subsequently joined the Sun Belt over the next 18 months, made a commitment to rebuild the Sun Belt to compete with the other Group of 5 conferences. This extension with ESPN not only demonstrates that the Sun Belt has indeed achieved that goal of being able to go toe-to-toe with our peer conferences, but this new agreement now provides our 12-member universities with a TV and multimedia partner who is still regarded as a worldwide leader. And through that power of ESPN and Disney, this new deal will allow the Sun Belt and its member schools to continue to gain greater national recognition and notoriety, and for their fans to have the luxury to watch all their Sun Belt sports anytime and anywhere.
Thank you, Commissioner. And now from ESPN, Vice President of Programming and Acquisitions, Nick Dawson.
Thank you, John, and thank you to Mark and Karl for their leadership to get us to this point today. It's an exciting day for ESPN as well today. You know, we're thrilled to extend our long relationship with the Sun Belt Conference for the next decade in a deal that is innovative by any nature that you might describe it. We're pleased to be able to present more Sun Belt events to Sun Belt fans throughout the country each year across every sport, and appreciate the conference's ambition and interest in all of our new and emerging platforms. So a thrilling day for ESPN, and excited to be a part of this great announcement.
Thank you very much, Nick. And as a reminder to our members of the media, it is *1 to ask a question here today, and we will wait a moment while questions get in the queue. First question today comes to the line of Tim Buckley from the Lafayette Daily Advertiser. Tim, if you're ready, go ahead.
Thanks, John. Karl, I know you haven't released any financial information on this, but what light, if any, can you shed on that? And also what light in terms of maybe how it compares to the other Group of 5 deals that are out there?
As is always the case, Tim, the financial terms are not released. However, I can tell you that this is a significant increase in the rights fee that we've received in the past. Again, I think it demonstrates the value that the Sun Belt has achieved over the last 5 years, and the confidence in ESPN that we truly are a viable and a very, very attractive athletic conference. As far as comparisons, I know we always try to compare with our peers, and I would only say that that this puts us on par with our peers. There's never an easy way to try to fairly compare deals, and yet I know the media and the general public always wants to compare deals. But I can say that for the first time in the history of the Sun Belt, we will be able to provide our member universities with television revenue that is a difference maker for them. And we know who we are and where we are in the pecking order of conferences, and we know what the SEC and the Big Ten provide their members. But I'm just proud that really for the first time the Sun Belt will be able to have a meaningful revenue stream that is based on our value. And I mentioned that that 6 years ago when the Sun Belt had its membership changes, there were reasons that those universities left the Sun Belt. The universities that were part of the Sun Belt at that time that are still members of the Sun Belt, they now will be able to receive again meaningful revenue from this new extension over the next, as Nick said, decade.
Okay. And one other quick, just kind of provincial question that I think people in Lafayette are interested in. How might it impact a deal like the one that the Cajuns have right now with CST that they just recently announced?
This is an exclusive arrangement, and it was one that was was put in front of us in terms of the broadness and the magnitude of it, and it does supersede all quote local and regional deals, and yet there's still some opportunities that that could exist over and above the commitments that we've made to ESPN, the obligations that we've made. Certainly won't rule out any of those, but again, the 500 so events that that we're obligated to provide ESPN is going to be pretty much the entire inventory of Sunbelt sports.
Thanks, Karl.
Thank you very much, Tim. Reminder to our members of the media, *1 to ask questions. Right now we're going to go to the line of Brooks Cabina from the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. They're in Little Rock. Brooks, if you're ready, go ahead.
All right, thank you. This one's for Nick Dawson. Now, I was wondering about ESPN Plus and how much of the 500 eventually will be, under that, $44.99 subscription, and just, could you kind of explain a little bit more about that and how that worked in with this contract?
Sure, Brooks. So I think a fair majority of the content will eventually find its way to the ESPN Plus platform. It's one of the real exciting things that comes out of this deal for ESPN. Obviously, the company is putting a significant investment into that space, into the digital space, with ESPN Plus launching at some point this spring. There's a firm linear network commitment in this deal, which I think is detailed in the release. But we really see ESPN Plus becoming a destination for Sunbelt fans, especially across the Sunbelt Conference Championship events, and as you go deeper into the football and men's basketball inventory, as well as the majority of the women's basketball inventory as well. So it's an important product for us. It'll be thousands of events across a multitude of different sports and leagues and governing bodies that will populate that service for us. But Sunbelt will be a major player in that space for us, and we think can be a great destination for Sunbelt fans moving forward.
Okay, and there are some already available on, if you have a subscription, and then you can enter that and get on. This would be additional, then you would have to pay $4.99 to see these additional things?
Yeah, so events that will populate on ESPN Plus, the business model there for ESPN Plus will be the $4.99 a month subscriber fee for fans. It's a little early probably to say exactly what content will go where. But I think it's fair to say that beyond the linear network games that we'll televise mostly across football and men's basketball, the vast majority of the rest of the content will be housed within the ESPN Plus product, which obviously will live within the ESPN app and be accessed through the monthly subscription.
Okay, thank you.
Let me follow up on that. This is Karl. It was
Okay.
almost a year ago that we kind of first started going down the path, and what started our discussion with ESPN was focusing on our football championship game. That was not inside our current agreement, and we knew that we needed to to come to an agreement with ESPN on the football championship game. And as those discussions started, we did retain an outside consultant, Wasserman, formerly Wasserman Media Group, now just called Wasserman, and Tag Garson, a longtime television consultant and expert. And we were focusing on the football championship game, and that then merged into talking about the existing agreement, and at the same time ESPN and their acquisitions of some of their newer properties, and all of a sudden we started talking about how big could this overall new agreement get to, and knowing that we wanted, Brooks, to your point about the digital versus the linear number, we wanted to maintain that presence on ESPN, ESPN2, and ESPNU, and we know that there's an audience that depends on that programming. But what we saw through our research, through the ESPN research, was just how the world of watching sports was changing, and we thought we had an opportunity to really get in on the ground floor, and that's what I think what prompted us to start really thinking out of the box a little bit, and just seeing how big this could be. And
yeah.
We ended up with this robust number of contests and games that perhaps in the past never saw the light of day, except on maybe some institutional websites, and now it's going to get the same type of coverage that we get on the linear. And again, Nick mentioned innovative, creative. I think all that is what we really want to talk about, in terms of this deal. Also want to make our fans know that that we did not give up the need to maintain games on Saturdays, and we will still have 2 midweek football games. We'll have an assortment of Thursday games, which I think in the college football landscape, those Thursday night games have and become kind of a normal staple. But we really wanted to protect Saturdays, and that that this allows us to do that, and to be able to play games at regular times on Saturday, knowing that it's still going to get maximum coverage and distribution, and those highlights are going to show up on SportsCenter, and top 10 plays of the day that are going to be coming out of the digital world. So it's I think it's a tribute to our presidents and chancellors, I think, who recognized the uniqueness of it and the creativity of it. This also is an opportunity for each of our universities to build out either their existing or their new on-campus production facilities, where they will be producing this content, this sport content, but also at a time when universities are using those production capabilities and production facilities to promote the entire university. So we look at it as an opportunity, not just on the athletic side, but also on the academic side and the institutional side.
Thank you very much, Brooks. And right now we will go to the line of Dan McDonald from The Advocate. Dan, if you're ready, please go ahead.
Thanks, John. This is for Karl, and you touched on this just a little bit. With the sheer numbers that you're going to have in each of these upcoming years and so forth, is the onus going to be a lot more on, you touched on the individual institutions packaging their product and producing the actual product. How much onus is on them to almost, for lack of a better term, upgrade to the level that you want out there and kind of have that ESPN3 look and have everybody sort of looking the same?
Dan, there will be an obligation for all 12 universities to build out their production facilities. It's going to some schools are at various stages right now. There are some schools that are producing that content at that level already, and that they do not need to increase their capability. There's other universities that are starting at a much lower level, and it'll take them a little bit longer. But the end result is that all 12 universities will be able to generate and produce content that is not just ESPN3 quality, but it's the same quality as you're seeing on any of the linear broadcasts. And again, this is where the presidents and chancellors really recognized what that overall value would be to their universities, not just on the sports side, but others. And it's not going to happen overnight. We're not going to flip on the switch, but right now schools have already started. Those that are at the kind of the beginning stage, they're starting to build out those facilities right now to be ready for next fall to produce football content.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. Again, a reminder to our members of the media, *1 to get in the queue for questions. Right now, we'll go to the line of Mitch Davis from the Mitch Davis Show. Mitch, if you're ready, please go ahead.
Hey, how are y'all doing today?
Very good.
Good. Hey, this is for Mr. Karl. Mr. Karl, when is this going to go in effect for spring football, or will it be more towards next fall? And as well with baseball, will we see any change with baseball coverage as well?
Probably won't see a substantial change, this spring. But your comment about spring football, that once we are in place, and the content will not just be regular season games or contests. It will be coaches shows. It will be highlights. It'll be national letter and signing days. It'll be spring football. It'll be award ceremonies on individual campuses that will be on the digital side. So again, the focus is on the games themselves, but I think that there is so much flexibility in this arrangement, and there's such there really is no limit on the number of events that can be put on that digital space, and that's the luxury of this all-in arrangement, and that's a term that we started using as we went through the negotiations. Was what would it mean for the Sun Belt to be all in, and that was a commitment from our universities to build out these production facilities, and at the same time take advantage of this new digital world.
Yes, sir. And the next question I have, the last question I have here, what percentage of the revenue, the TV revenue, and from ESPN is each school going to get?
I mean, it goes into our revenue distribution formula, and we generally have had an equal sharing formula, which I would presume that we would continue to go with. We have 10 football playing schools. We have Little Rock and UT Arlington that don't play football, but we look at them as valuable members of this deal, and their basketball content and all their other sports are valuable to this arrangement as well. So again, one of the benefits, and I've said this before over the course of the last couple of years, all of our trends, all of the Sun Belt trends from a competitive standpoint to the business side, all of our trends are moving up. And while some conferences have had reductions in revenue from current or previous television arrangements, we're moving up, and this arrangement is a result of the Sun Belt kind of starting at the ground floor. We're the newest football conference in the country. and it's taken us time to build our foundation. Our new membership has been able to come in and immediately add to the overall value of the Sun Belt. And you look at the football success that we've had and the postseason success, and some of that success coming from those new members, Georgia Southern, Appalachian State, Georgia State, that have all gone to bowl games, South Alabama that just started up a football game. Those are our new programs, and that's what I think ESPN has recognized, is that the Sun Belt is a conference that still has tremendous upside and tremendous growth opportunities.
And again, thank you very much, Mitch. Next question will go to the line of Ariana Vidia from the Shorthorn. Ariana, if you're ready, please go ahead.
Thank you. This one is for Mr. Benson. We've talked about football, baseball, and basketball, but will the coverage extend to sports such as tennis and golf?
There will be that opportunity. Again, every sporting event on your campus at UTA will be available. Some of the production challenges of going to kind of outside venues versus the traditional indoor venues that are usually permanently wired. But I know that as the universities are building their production facilities, they're building some portable units that will be able to provide those sports that in the past have not had that type of coverage. From a Sun Belt championship standpoint, we'll be doing all of our championships through the ESPN Plus, and again, those are sports that like we did a little experiment with some of our outdoor sports and some of our golf championships, and we did some drones that were flying over the golf course and drones that were flying over the cross country, and so I think that again, I think we'll be able to maybe create some creative ways to show some of those sports that in the past haven't been covered before.
Thank you, Mr. Benson.
Thank you, Ariana. We're going to go to the line of Joel Cox from Red Wolf Roll Call up in Jonesboro. Joel, if you're ready, please go ahead.
Hey, Commish, for you and maybe even Nick on this, obviously reading the press release, one of the things that was discussed for the championship game on December 1st, which is a Saturday, was the possibility of ABC, ESPN, ESPN2. I mean, what are the determining factors on really which network that game is possibly going to be held on?
I'll turn this to Nick for that explanation, but before I'll say one of the things that we were really pleased with was to know that the game would be on Saturday, and by contract the game will be on Saturday, and that I think gives us an opportunity to be alongside not just our peer conferences but the other five conferences and part of that championship Saturday. As far as the determination, Nick, do you want to give that a stab?
Yeah, sure, Joel. I think that's a decision we'll make on a yearly basis on kind of the normal, week by week selection process in the football season. And there's a lot of factors that will come into it at the end of the day. Our overall suite of games that we have the rights to on that given day, storylines for a given season, in terms of rankings, things like that. So hard to pinpoint exactly, what will be the one driving force. There'll probably be many, and they could differ from year to year. But as Karl said, our commitment was, one, that the game would be on Saturday, which we think is important, and two, that it would definitely land on one of those three networks, which are all obviously fully distributed, premier linear networks across the country.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Joel. And let's go back to the line of Brooks Cabina from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Brooks?
Hey, and this one can be both for Karl and Nick as well, whoever wants to take it. You mentioned about the Saturday games in football, that there would still be some midweek, 2 midweek games. In the release, there wasn't any specific number like how many there would be in the week. Are there specifics to that, and how many would be played on a Thursday or Saturdays?
Well, it was a very important part of the negotiations is that we did not want to to take on the similar Tuesday menu of games or Tuesday, Wednesday. Over the last 6 years now, we've been by contract obligated to provide 2 midweek games, either a Tuesday or a Wednesday, or one Tuesday or one Wednesday. And while we would have liked to have maybe traded those midweek games for Thursdays or Saturdays, they are very important to ESPN. And I think over the course of time, we've noticed that that those are some of our most highly rated games, and that we get great fan response from those. We know that they're not the easiest games from a production standpoint on campus, and the inconvenience that it has with fans. But we wanted to make sure that we didn't go any more than the 2, and so that the new contract or the new agreement will limit us to those 2 midweek games. As I mentioned earlier, the Thursday games, I know that there's a base of fans who maybe think that those are inconvenient, and I know that that our fan bases in the majority of our locales are not in metropolitan areas where their fan base is within an hour away. That our fan bases are 2 and sometimes up to 3 or 4 hours away, and we know that those Thursday night games aren't convenient for those fan bases. But again, I think what we want to try to do is to get a happy medium and a balance of being able to provide that type of exposure, but at the same time maintain Saturday. Earlier this week when we announced this year's football schedule, 2 schools that I know of, App State and UL Lafayette, are having all 4 of their conference games on Saturdays, and that was a big hit to fans, and we know that we hear fans about the importance of Saturday games, and so we'll do our best to continue with that. And again, I think this broadcast arrangement allows for a very, very good balance between kind of the overall normal historical distribution on the linear versus the digital.
Gotcha. You mentioned something on your Twitter feed. There was a video of you talking about this deal about maybe half an hour ago. You were mentioning by 2020 that the schools would have everything fully operational, even students would be working them. What are kind of the details on that, on making sure that every school has them, and which schools aren't yet fully operational to provide those broadcasts as you need them?
Yeah, I don't think it's important to kind of do a institutional assessment of where schools are and where they aren't at this juncture. As far as the student involvement, many of the schools, and this just isn't in the Sun Belt, and this is where some of the academic piece comes into play too, is that schools will enhance their broadcast departments, their academic units, where students are getting hands-on experience and real life broadcasting experience behind the cameras, and sometimes in front of the cameras. So will these productions rely on students? Absolutely they will, and it'll be a combination of quote hired help versus student help.
Okay. Well, Nick, I have a follow-up question on that. The representation on ESPN, and you guys are entrusting that to the students, and it's obviously an opportunity. But is that kind of, I don't know. You guys are obviously okay with that. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I'd say, this is this is somewhat of a model that has been in practice in certain areas in our college relationships for a couple of years now. We have a team on our end that acts as somewhat of an advisory panel and assists schools in terms of advice and technical expertise, that type of thing. Also has the ability to sort of review their work and give pointers and tips for improvement. I think, Karl mentioned, that this is not the case where it's going to be 100% students. There'll be a nice balance there between sort of quote-unquote professional, production personnel with students manning various positions that we think are great learning experiences, but also sort of positions that can be handled by someone that doesn't have a ton of experience. So, we expect a certain level quality product, and I know the conference and schools, want their product to be at a high level as well. So we have full faith that the quality of the content will be more than sufficient.
Was that done to kind of alleviate the cost, or how are they paid?
I mean, I would defer that back to Karl. I mean, each school has to make their decisions on how they choose to sort of put together the production model for the events on their campus. Certainly, the idea of producing events from sort of one central environment, on campus versus the model of rolling individual trucks for individual events is certainly a more efficient model when you're talking about this scale of content. But each, in terms of the details of how each school will operate would be a question for the conference.
And it varies, Brooks, from school to school. Those that have full-scale broadcast, departments, those students are part of an academic program. But schools also have budgeted resources for work study programs that again they can fit into their institutional budgets to pay students, and again if it requires going outside and hiring those professionals, those are costs that some schools are experiencing right now. So again, will there be production costs? Absolutely, there'll be production costs. Will there be revenue against those costs that will at the end of the day be meaningful? There will be meaningful revenue from this arrangement.
All right, thank you very much, Brooks. That is all the questions we have today. I will turn it back over to Commissioner Benson for some closing remarks.
Just that, again, I couldn't be more proud to be part and affiliated with the Sun Belt as I've watched the growth and the way that the conference has been able to just commit to getting better. We coined the phrase 4 or 5 years ago, "Together we rise," and at that time, some people may have thought that it was kind of a corny, slogan and a corny mantra, but the number of times, over a course of the month that I hear it used on a campus, that it really did capture kind of the spirit of the Sun Belt. And we have a combination of charter members of the Sun Belt Conference that even go back to to 1976 with South Alabama and Georgia State and as charter members of the Sun Belt, and we have the new members that are celebrating their first or second year in the Sun Belt. So great leadership at the presidential and chancellor level, along with the athletic directors, and again, we couldn't do any of this without our coaches and our student athletes. So a red letter day for the Sun Belt, and appreciate the work that all you do to support intercollegiate athletics. So with that, we stand adjourned, and I think most of you have my contact information and know how to reach me, and know that if you call, I'll answer. So you have follow-ups, don't hesitate to contact me. And with that, have a good rest of the afternoon, and enjoy the madness of March as we begin the Sun Belt basketball tournament next Tuesday right here in New Orleans.